The rain struck like cold needles as Monica Harris stepped outside her diner, apron damp, eyes heavy. That's when she saw him, shivering alone in a battered wheelchair, soaked to the bone, eyes wide with silent fear. No one else moved. No one cared. But Monica did. She knelt beside him, voice soft, steady. "Come inside, baby." Across the street behind tinted glass, a billionaire sat frozen, watching his son being fed by a stranger who knew nothing of power, only kindness. When a cold-eyed woman later came to take the boy, claiming to be his aunt, Monica didn't argue. She didn't scream. But her silence carried weight. And someone noticed. Soon, a woman who scraped by on tips would find herself standing before a boardroom full of men ready to cast her out, or crown her. All because she chose to care. This is a story about debt, dignity, and the kind of courage no one expects from a waitress at closing time. If you've ever believed kindness still matters, keep watching. And join those who still believe in stories that change lives. Monica Harris was 36, with deep brown eyes that carried more exhaustion than sleep could cure, and skin the color of rich mahogany that the world too often overlooked. Her dark curls were tied back in a tight knot, apron stained with grease and coffee from a 12-hour shift at Louie's Diner on Lexington Avenue. She moved like someone who had learned not to waste energy, but never failed to smile. Even when her feet ached. Even when her tips couldn't cover rent. Every night, she cleaned the counter exactly the same way. 2 swipes left to right, 1 circle at the corner, then a final pass down the middle. It wasn't just habit. It was hers. A little ritual of control in a world that rarely offered any. At the end of every shift, she left a wrapped sandwich on the back steps, where someone without a home always seemed to find it by morning. Monica lived alone in a drafty third-floor walk-up where the radiator rattled louder than the TV. No husband. No kids. Just a bookshelf of second-hand novels and a photo of her mother, who had died with calluses on her hands and fire in her spine. Monica had been 20 when she gave up college to raise her younger brother. Dreams were a luxury she couldn't afford. The city didn't see her. Customers barely read her name tag. People called her hey or miss. But Monica noticed everything. The way folks stiffened when she walked by. The way the register always seemed to come up short when she was working. She never made a fuss. But she never forgot. And on that night, past 11 p.m., with rain hammering the cracked sidewalk, Monica saw something that made her pause mid-wipe. A child, no older than 10, slumped in a wheelchair outside the neon-lit window. His coat was soaked, his lips pale, hands shaking around a blanket too thin to matter. Something about that image, the stillness, the cold, told Monica this wasn't just a lost boy. It was the start of something much bigger. Monica didn't ask for permission. She didn't call the manager or check the clock. She just dropped the rag on the counter and stepped out into the rain. The cold hit her like a wall, sharp, unforgiving, slicing through her cotton shirt in an instant. But she didn't flinch. Her sneakers splashed through the puddles as she approached the boy. "Hey there, baby," she said gently, crouching to his eye level. Her voice was a hush in the storm. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The boy's eyes, bright blue too wide for someone so small, lifted toward her. His hair clung to his forehead, soaked and stringy. He looked like a ghost wrapped in a coat 2 sizes too big. "I'm waiting for my dad," he said, voice barely louder than the rain. Monica scanned the street. No cars. No people. Just the flickering neon of the pawn shop across the road, and the low rumble of tires against wet asphalt. Her stomach tightened. "Where is he, sweetheart?" she asked, softer now. The boy shrugged. "Said he'd be back soon." She bit her lip. She'd heard that before, from too many kids, too many stories that ended in social workers and shelters. But she didn't press. "Not yet." "Well, you can't stay out here like this," she said, forcing warmth into her voice. "It's freezing. Come inside with me. I've got something special waiting." He hesitated. Just for a moment. Then nodded. Monica reached for the wheelchair handles and pushed gently. The wheels creaked. The boy didn't resist. The moment they crossed into the diner, warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. The air smelled like old grease, burnt coffee, and something sweet, something homey. She guided him to the booth near the radiator, the warmest spot in the house, and draped a clean towel over his shoulders. "I'm Monica," she said. kneeling beside him with a smile that had taken years to perfect. "What's your name, baby?" He sniffled. "Lucas. That's a good strong name." She ruffled his damp hair. "You hungry?" Lucas nodded. She didn't wait for more. Monica moved into the kitchen, pulling out the last sourdough loaf she'd been saving. She sliced it clean, melted cheddar between the bread, and grilled it to a crisp golden brown. A bowl of tomato soup simmered on the side, her grandmother's recipe, made to chase away cold nights and heartbreak. She returned with the plate, setting it down like a feast. Lucas stared at it wide-eyed. "This is the best thing I've ever had," he murmured after the first bite, his voice edged with something close to wonder. Monica chuckled softly. Good food makes everything better. But inside her heart ached. He shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be this small, this cold, this alone. Across the street, behind a rain-streaked windshield, a man watched in silence. Charles Bennett sat alone in the back of a black Bentley, eyes hard, expression unreadable. At 46, he was known in business circles as a man who didn't make mistakes. CEO of Bennett Corporation, he'd built an empire through precision, not pity. And right now, he was watching a woman in a greasy apron take better care of his son than he had. He reached for his phone. "Vanessa," he said when his assistant answered. "Get to Lexington Diner."
"No sweets. No heels."
"I want you there in 20. "Sir," she asked. "Find out everything about the woman who just fed my son." Then he hung up. Inside, Lucas laughed, really laughed, for the first time that night, crumbs on his chin and soup on his shirt. Monica wiped his mouth with a napkin, shaking her head. Messy eater, huh? She didn't know someone was watching, calculating, taking notes. Because to Charles Bennett, kindness wasn't free. Came with a price. And whether she knew it or not, Monica Harris had just entered his debt. The bell above the diner door chimed softly, cutting through the warm hush like a knife. Cold air rushed in first, bringing with it the sharp scent of rain and asphalt. Then came the woman, mid-30s, blonde hair tucked into a worn Orioles cap, jeans, hoodie, dry despite the storm. She didn't look like she belonged on this block. She didn't smell of diner grease or desperation. She walked like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Monica spotted her the moment she entered. The woman's gaze swept the place in a single smooth arc, landing on Lucas with surgical precision. She didn't look at the menu. She didn't glance at Monica. She just walked to the boy and crouched, a smile slipping into place like a mask. "Hey, champ," she said lightly, voice calm, almost cheerful. "Time to go." Lucas frowned, his small hand still curled around the ceramic mug of milk Monica had given him. "But I haven't finished." "You can take it with you," she replied. "Your ride's waiting." Monica's instincts flared like a match. She'd seen women like this before. Too smooth, too practiced, too quiet. People who carried stories behind their smiles and orders in their eyes. She stepped forward, folding her arms. "You know him?" she asked. The woman didn't hesitate, but her posture shifted. Just a fraction. The shoulders locked, eyes cooled. "Yeah," she said with that same easy tone. "I'm his aunt." Monica didn't blink. She turned to Lucas. "That true, baby?" The pause was slight, maybe a heartbeat, but to Monica it rang louder than thunder. Lucas looked at the woman, then back at Monica. "She's here for my dad," he mumbled. "I guess I have to go." There it was. Not confirmation. Not trust. Just resignation. Monica had grown up in a world where that kind of hesitation meant everything. Where power moved in whispers and kids like Lucas got swept up in things they didn't understand. She knelt beside him again, shielding him with her body as best she could, voice low and careful. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked. "You feel safe with her?" Lucas hesitated again. But then with a soft sigh he nodded. More from pressure than peace. Monica stood. She couldn't stop this. Not without risking more than a scene. A black woman challenging a white woman in a diner past midnight? She'd seen how that played out. No one would ask why. They'd just see loud. See threat. See her. But she wouldn't send him away empty-handed. She walked to the counter, grabbed one of the house-baked chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the evening batch, and wrapped it in wax paper. She pressed it into Lucas's hand. "For the road," she said gently. His fingers closed around it, small and warm. Thanks, Monica, he whispered. You're the best. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The woman, Vanessa Brooks, gently took hold of the wheelchair handles and began to guide Lucas toward the door. But before she crossed the threshold, she turned back. She didn't speak, didn't explain, just looked. And Monica saw it. In her eyes. Not anger. Not gratitude. A warning. Across the street, the Bentley's headlights flashed twice. Vanessa opened the rear door without knocking. Charles Bennett stepped out, towering in the glow of the diner's neon sign. He didn't greet her. Didn't even look at Lucas, now bundled in the back seat. Well, he asked. She's sharp, Vanessa replied. Didn't buy the aunt story. Almost called me on it. She let him go. Vanessa folded her arms. She didn't have a choice. You know how it is. A black woman makes a scene. She's the one in trouble, not me. Charles's jaw flexed. She's not like the others. I know, he said. He had seen it all. The way Monica had walked into the rain without hesitation. How she had spoken to Lucas like he mattered. Not like a burden. Not like a chore. She had given without knowing who the boy was. That made her dangerous. That made her rare. And Charles Bennett didn't believe in rare. He believed in leverage. The rain hadn't let up when Monica finally closed the diner. Her sneakers were soaked, each step home a slow squish through freezing puddles. The streets of West Fayette Street were quiet at that hour, just the hum of street lamps and the distant wail of a siren 2 blocks away. She climbed the creaky steps to her apartment, body heavy, mind heavier. She hadn't been able to shake the image of Lucas's face, hopeful, uncertain, resigned. Something about that woman hadn't sat right. Monica unlocked the door, stepping into the one-bedroom space she'd made her sanctuary. The radiator wheezed in the corner. A stack of unopened bills waited on the counter. Her coat dripped as she peeled it off, the damp chill still clinging to her skin. Then 3 soft knocks. She froze. No one knocked on her door at this hour. No one came by at all. Her breath caught. Slowly, she stepped to the peephole. What she saw made her stomach lurch. A man. Tall. Broad. Wearing a black wool coat that probably cost more than her month's rent. His face was sharp, angular. Gray eyes that didn't wander. Didn't plead. They calculated. She didn't open the door. Who is it? She asked, voice firm. A pause. Charles Bennett. The name meant nothing to her. What do you want? Another pause. To talk. Everything in her told her to say no. To shut the door. To lock it twice. But curiosity pulled harder than fear. Slowly, cautiously, she cracked it open just enough to see his face clearly. I don't know you, she said flatly. No, he agreed. But you know my son. Monica's pulse stuttered. She stepped back, eyes narrowing. Lucas. He nodded once. I was across the street last night. The chill inside her grew teeth. You were watching? She asked. I was. Monica's jaw tightened. So what? You here to complain that I gave your kid a sandwich? Charles didn't blink. No, he said simply. I'm here because I don't believe in charity. But I do believe in paying debts. He stepped forward, not threatening, just certain, and set a thick envelope on her wobbly kitchen table. She didn't touch it. Just stared. What is that? She asked. A job offer. She blinked like the words didn't compute. A what? Charles's tone didn't change. A position at Bennett Corporation, 6 figures. Full benefits. Monica laughed once, sharp, bitter. You think I want to work for some rich man who thinks handing out a check makes everything square? His voice stayed steady. I don't think you want charity. That's why I'm not offering it. The way he said her name, Monica, landed with a weight she didn't expect. You don't even know me. I know enough, he replied. You fed my son. You didn't ask who he was. You didn't treat him like he was broken. That's rare. She crossed her arms, fighting the tremble that wanted to rise. What would I even be doing at Bennett Corporation? Making coffee. Charles's expression twitched, just a flicker, almost a smile.
No.
You'd work directly with me.
Handling negotiations.
Public relations. You're good with people. I need that. Monica scoffed. You've got a whole building of Ivy League grads who'd sell their own mothers for a chance like that. Exactly, he said. That's why I don't trust them. The silence stretched thick and dense. Monica looked down at the envelope, felt the weight of it without even lifting it. 6 figures. No more rent warnings. No more stretch-a-dollar weeks. No more wondering if tomorrow would swallow her whole. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Don't ever owe them, baby. They don't give without taking. She clenched her jaw. Why me? Charles's voice dropped, quiet but solid. Because you saw my son, he said. Not my money. Not my name. Him. Her throat burned. She looked at the envelope again. Then slowly, with a hand that didn't quite shake, she picked it up. I'll think about it, she said. Charles nodded once. Good. And then he turned, coat still damp from the rain, and left without another word. Monica stood in silence long after the door clicked shut. The envelope in her hand felt heavier than steel, because she already knew. She wasn't just thinking about it. She was going to say yes. The lobby of Bennett Corporation didn't feel like a workplace. It felt like a cathedral built to worship money. Polished marble floors stretched beneath vaulted ceilings. A chandelier the size of her apartment hovered overhead, dripping with crystal. Monica Harris stepped through the glass doors in a second-hand blazer and scuffed heels, the air-conditioned chill brushing against her skin like a silent test. Heads turned. Not in curiosity, in calculation. Who is she? Why is she here? She didn't flinch. She'd worked in places where people whispered behind her back while she cleared their plates. She'd been dismissed, ignored, underestimated. This wasn't new. But here the stakes were different. Every step she took echoed like a dare. She reached the elevator, rode it in silence, heart steady. Charles Bennett was waiting in a glass-walled office that overlooked the city. The desk was sleek, unblemished, more sculpture than workspace. He didn't look up when she entered. You're late, he said. Monica arched a brow. By 2 minutes. He finally looked at her, gray eyes razor-sharp. That's 2 minutes I don't get back. She let out a breath. Look, if you brought me here to micromanage my time, I can turn around right now. He didn't blink. That remains to be seen. Before she could answer, the glass door slid open. Vanessa Brooks entered, tablet in hand, posture as crisp as her tone. She scanned Monica with the same quiet critique she'd given her at the diner. Miss Harris, she said coolly. Welcome to Bennett Corporation. Monica didn't miss a beat. Oh, we're doing last names? Great. Good to see you again, Miss Brooks. Something flickered behind Vanessa's eyes, gone as quickly as it came. She turned to Charles. I've prepared the documents for the Orion negotiations. He nodded but didn't look at her. Leave them. I'll brief her myself. Vanessa hesitated, then placed the tablet on his desk. At the door she paused, eyes flicking back to Monica one last time. Good luck, she murmured. It didn't sound like encouragement. It sounded like a warning. As soon as she left, Charles stood retrieving the file. Orion Group, he said. They want to outsource production overseas. That means layoffs. Thousands. Monica scanned the report. Numbers. Projections. A line of zeros that translated to real families, real people gone. And you want me to what? She asked. Convince them not to. She looked up. So I'm here to guilt-trip billionaires? He shook his head. You're here because you understand something they don't. Her eyes narrowed. What's that? He didn't pause. That people who have nothing to lose fight the hardest. The word struck a place she didn't show anyone. She leaned back in the chair, arms crossed. You talk in riddles, Charles. For someone who runs an empire, you sure sound like a preacher. His mouth twitched. Not a smile, but close. Then just as quickly the moment passed. Meetings at noon, he said, already walking toward the window. Try not to be late. Monica didn't respond. She stood, smoothed her jacket and walked out, heels clicking against the marble like gunshots. They had no idea who they just invited to the table. The conference room felt less like a place of business and more like a battleground. All steel and glass, sleek lines, no warmth. It had been designed to impress and to intimidate. Monica sat at the far end of a long mahogany table, a pitcher of untouched water gleaming under recessed lights. To her left, Charles Bennett, unreadable as ever. Across from them sat 3 men in tailored suits, The kind of expensive wool that whispered legacy and power. At the center, Gregory Whitman. 60. Silver hair slicked back. Eyes the pale blue of arrogance. He barely looked at her. Charles didn't waste time. You want to move production to Taiwan, he said flatly, claiming cost efficiency. I say it guts a workforce that built this company from the ground up. Whitman offered a slow, tight smile. You misunderstand, Charles. It's not personal. It's just business. Monica's jaw clenched. She had heard that before. When her landlord doubled rent because a developer bought the building. When her mother lost her factory job overnight. When the grocery store 2 blocks down replaced every cashier with a screen. It's always just business, she said evenly. Until it's your job that disappears. Whitman's eyes finally met hers. Cold. Evaluating. And you are. She didn't flinch. Monica Harris. Bennett Corporation. He gave her a slow once-over. She saw the exact moment he dismissed her. Like she was the help who spoke out of turn. I get it, he said, voice syrupy with condescension. You think we're the villains. But this is about numbers, sweetheart. Sweetheart. Monica leaned forward, voice low but sharp. Then let's talk numbers. She slid a folder across the table. Whitman raised a brow but didn't touch it. This is a 5-year impact projection. Sure, you'll save money at first. But within 3 years, labor demands overseas will spike. Your cheaper factory? Not so cheap anymore. You'll be bleeding money through restructuring, rehiring, and PR disasters. She tapped the cover once, calm but unyielding. Because when headlines read, American jobs replaced by offshore profits, your shareholders won't be smiling. The silence thickened. Whitman finally opened the folder. His associates leaned in. Charles didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Monica had taken the floor. And she wasn't giving it back. You can make the smart choice now, she said. Or explain to your board later why your short-term gains cost them long-term returns. Gregory scanned the analysis. His lips thinned. For the first time he didn't look so sure. Charles glanced sideways just slightly. Monica felt the shift. The room had turned. Power wasn't where it had started. Whitman closed the folder, his voice measured. We'll revisit the proposal. Charles nodded once. See that you do. As the meeting adjourned, suits rose, handshakes exchanged. But Monica stayed seated a moment longer, letting it sink in. She hadn't just held her ground. She had redefined it. Back in the hallway, Charles looked at her with a trace of something new. Respect. I knew I hired you for a reason, he said. Monica smirked. Damn right you did. For the first time since she stepped into Bennett Corporation, Monica didn't feel like she was visiting someone else's world. She felt like she belonged. 2 months in, Monica had carved a space for herself inside Bennett Corporation. She walked the glass halls with purpose now, head held high, heels steady. She'd weathered whispers, sidelong glances, questions masked as compliments. But she held the floor in meetings. She earned nods from board members who hadn't even acknowledged her name before. She was no longer just that hire. She was Monica Harris. And she had a seat at the table. But power is never given without resistance. She had just returned from a client meeting when Vanessa Brooks found her in the hallway. We have a problem, Vanessa said. No greeting. No warmth. Monica's body tensed. Define problem. Vanessa handed her a printed email. 1 page, 3 sentences. But it hit like a hammer. A confidential financial report. Forwarded to the press. From her company email. Her name. Her address. Her digital fingerprint. Monica's breath stalled. I didn't send this. I know, Vanessa said low. But someone wants people to think you did. The hallway around them blurred. The air changed, became dense, suffocating. Monica's fingers clenched around the paper. She had been in enough rooms, lived through enough tests to know how fast stories like this spiraled. She wasn't just a name on a leak. She was a black woman in a white empire. She didn't get to be innocent until proven guilty. Vanessa's eyes were sharp but honest. Raymond knows. So does the board. Monica's stomach twisted. The board. She had barely earned their attention. Now they'd give it for the worst reasons. She marched toward Charles Bennett's office, the email still in her hand, fury wrapped tight around every step. The door was ajar when she arrived. Charles looked up. His expression was colder than usual. Not anger. Not judgment. Just calculation. She dropped the paper on his desk. This isn't me. He didn't look at it. I want to believe that, he said, voice flat, controlled. But this isn't small, Monica. This is millions in exposure. Investigations. Stock drops. She leaned over his desk, voice sharp. You think I'm stupid enough to risk everything for what? A headline. Silence. He didn't answer. That said more than words could. Her heart thudded against her ribs. Do you think I did this? His gaze didn't waver. No, he said finally. Relief came in the form of a single exhale. But the board does. She closed her eyes. Just for a second. The noose had been placed. All it needed was one good tug. So what happens now? She asked. Charles sat back, lacing his fingers. Now we find the real leak. Her eyes snapped to his. We. Not you. Not I. We. It was the first time he'd used the word like it meant something. A shift. A crack in the ice. He stood, sliding back into his blazer. Vanessa's already tracing the source. Whoever did this was careful. Rerouted the message through an external server. He met her eyes. But they made one mistake. What's that? They underestimated you. She didn't respond. Not yet. But something inside her, the same fire that had pulled Lucas in from the rain, flared back to life. Someone had picked the wrong woman to frame. And they were about to learn that firsthand. The office after hours felt like a different world. Emptier, colder, quieter. Hallways that had once buzzed with footsteps and low voices now echoed only with the soft hum of fluorescent lights. It was well past midnight when Monica and Vanessa locked themselves in the server room, lit only by the blue glow of screens and the soft tap of fingers racing across keyboards. They didn't speak much. There was no need. Vanessa had pulled the system logs, while Monica combed through timestamps, IP pings, and access records. Their silence wasn't tense, it was focused. Two women, different in every way, moving as one. This account didn't originate inside the company firewall, Vanessa muttered, eyes narrowing. Whoever did this used a proxy. External routing through an encrypted server. Monica leaned over her shoulder. So it can't be traced? Vanessa smirked just slightly. Oh, it can. They just thought we wouldn't know how. Hours passed. Coffee went cold. Monica's eyes burned from the screen, but she didn't stop. The deeper they dug, the clearer the picture became. The leak had been rerouted. Masked. Covered. But one thread, one small forgotten string remained exposed. A server access request from 3 weeks ago. Logged under a secondary administrative account. Vanessa clicked it open. And there it was. Richard Galloway. Senior Vice President. 10 years in the company. Safe. Trusted. Invisible. Until now. The air shifted in the room. Why him? Monica asked, voice low. Vanessa leaned back. He's old guard. Friends with half the board. Thought no one would question him. And with your name on the email. Easy target, Monica said bitterly. The outsider. The one they can cut loose without a whisper. Vanessa didn't disagree. By dawn they had more than enough. Call logs. Transfer timestamps. Deleted drafts recovered from backup caches. A string of encrypted payments into an offshore account. It wasn't just sabotage, it was deliberate. He tried to kill her career with a signature and a server bounce. But he hadn't counted on Monica Harris. She didn't wait for a summons. At 9 a.m. sharp, she marched into the boardroom before they could call her in. The space was already full, dozens of men in gray suits, arms folded, expressions heavy with expectation. Charles sat at the head of the table. He didn't rise. He didn't speak. But Monica caught the flicker in his eyes as she walked to the center and dropped a thick folder onto the polished wood. I assume you've seen the email, she said, voice clear. Murmurs. Yes. One of the older board members said tightly. Miss Harris, we. No, she cut in. You don't get to start this meeting like I'm guilty. Silence. I know what you assumed. And I know why. I was the perfect target. She placed her hands flat on the table. But you picked the wrong one. Then she opened the folder. Pages spread like a storybook, digital logs, server trails, financial records, all pointing to one name. Richard Galloway. At the far end of the table, Richard's face turned the color of ash. Vanessa stepped forward, placing a copy of the same evidence at each seat. Before anyone could speak, Monica's voice rang again. Our legal team has copies. So does the press. If you're thinking about damage control, start now. The room turned to stone. Richard stood abruptly. This is absurd. You can't. Charles's voice cut through the room like a blade. She's not bluffing. Richard froze. And just like that, he was done. The room was dead silent. Not a cough. Not a whisper. Just the low hum of the air conditioning and the sound of Richard Galloway's pulse beginning to thunder in his ears. He stood frozen at the end of the table, sweat prickling at his collar, his mouth half open, still reaching for a lie that might save him. Monica didn't flinch. She stepped forward, not fast, not loud, just deliberate. Her heels struck the hardwood like punctuation. Go ahead, she said quietly. Tell them I forged the logs. That I hacked the servers. That I sent that email. Say it. Richard's jaw tightened. You don't understand how this looks. No, she said, voice steady, sharp, unwavering. You don't understand how this feels. To sit in a room full of men who don't know you but are ready to believe the worst, because it's easier than asking real questions. She slid another sheet toward him, wire transfer records, a date circled in red. You left a trail, Richard. You thought no one would check. You thought no one would care. He swallowed hard but still didn't speak. Charles Bennett hadn't moved. He just watched. Not protecting Monica. Not rescuing her. Just letting the truth do the work. Monica turned her gaze toward the board. You wanted to believe it was me, she said. Because it was convenient. Because you didn't have to defend me to shareholders. Because I didn't fit the room you built. No one met her eyes. Not yet. You were wrong. She looked at Richard again. And you. Her tone shifted, cold now. Precision in every syllable. You didn't just try to sabotage me. You tried to survive this place by tearing someone else down. You used their doubt as a weapon. You gambled everything, on the assumption I wouldn't fight back. A beat. I hope it was worth it. One of the board members, a man who hadn't spoken the entire meeting, cleared his throat. Mr. Bennett, is this verified? Charles nodded once. Every detail. Legal's already confirmed. There was no anger in his voice. Just finality. Richard's breath caught. Wait. Look, this was a misunderstanding. No, Charles said. It was betrayal. He stood, adjusting his cufflinks like a man closing a meeting, not destroying a career. Effective immediately. Richard Galloway is terminated. Full legal action will follow. The words dropped like stone on glass. Shatter. Irreversible. Richard looked around, searching for support. No one moved. No one stood. Not even the men who had backed him 5 minutes earlier. And that, Monica realized, was the real punishment. The silence. The refusal to look. The shame. He stepped back slowly, papers still scattered across the table. His voice was gone. His face gray. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. Still no one spoke. Then Charles glanced across the table at Monica. You did what needed to be done. She didn't nod. Didn't smile. Instead, she looked at each face one by one, until finally someone looked back. Not with suspicion. Not with pity. With acknowledgement. And then another. And another. Until the room slowly, quietly, shifted its weight in her direction. 2 weeks later, the building had returned to its usual rhythm. Shoes on marble, murmured meetings, the scent of expensive coffee drifting from boardroom doors. But under the surface something had shifted. There was a new name people spoke in elevators, not with whispers but with a touch of caution. Monica Harris. She didn't gloat. She didn't walk taller or louder. She simply showed up earlier than everyone else, prepared, sharp. Her victory hadn't come with applause. It had come with silence. And silence in places like Bennett Corporation was louder than cheers. On a gray Thursday morning, she stood beside Charles Bennett at a high school gymnasium turned stage. The lights were too bright. The folding chairs too flimsy. But Lucas Bennett, now 12, sat in the front row, his wheelchair angled perfectly, a wide smile on his face. He held a diploma in his lap. I told you I'd make it, he beamed. Monica laughed softly, smoothing his collar. Never doubted you, baby. Charles watched from a step behind. His usual cool demeanor cracked just enough for warmth to slip through. You did good, he said quietly. Monica smirked. Damn right I did. They didn't hug. They didn't need to. But Lucas grinned between them like he knew something unspoken had shifted forever. Later that afternoon, Charles called Monica into his office. The same office where it all began. Glass walls, pristine desk, skyline blazing through the windows. But this time the envelope he handed her didn't come with conditions. This is formal, he said. Effective immediately, you're Vice President of Corporate Strategy. Monica blinked once. No gasp. No shock. Just the solid weight of something earned. You sure the board won't choke on it? She asked dryly. They already did, he replied. And they'll get over it. She chuckled. But beneath the smile was steel. Her new title came with a new office. A corner one. Same view. Different vantage point. And with it a new mission. Under her guidance, Bennett Corporation launched initiatives for ethical labor. Mentorship programs for young professionals. A fund to support minority-owned startups. The kind of change that didn't make headlines but made futures. Still, Monica wanted more. So, together with Charles and with Lucas now in high school, they built something outside those glass towers. The Carter Bennett Foundation. A community center on the west side of Baltimore. Job training. Education. A free clinic on weekends. And a kitchen, one that served warm meals without questions. At the ribbon cutting, Lucas stood proudly beside her. He was taller now, glasses gone, confidence built from something deeper than privilege. This place, he said into the microphone, voice cracking just a bit. It started with a sandwich. The crowd laughed, then grew quiet. And Monica, standing behind him, smiled, eyes wet but steady. Because it was true. None of this had begun with boardroom battles or corporate warfare. It had started with a moment. A choice. A plate of grilled cheese and tomato soup on a rainy night in a half-empty diner. That was her victory. Not the title. Not the office. But the knowledge that sometimes the quietest actions echo the loudest. It started in quiet places. A barbershop on the corner of Monroe and Chase Street, where an old man told a story to a boy waiting for a fade. About a waitress who fed a child in the rain and ended up running a tech company. A third-grade classroom where a teacher wrote Monica Harris on the whiteboard beside words like honor, resilience, and leadership. A Sunday sermon in East Baltimore, where a pastor didn't preach Monica's name, but spoke of a woman who chose kindness before recognition, who stood tall in rooms that weren't made for her. No one told Monica about these things, but she felt them. In the way strangers started nodding at her on the street. In how kids at the community center sat up straighter when she walked in. In the silence that settled over a room when someone said, "She's here." The community had seen her. Really seen her. And they remembered. But Monica never told her story. Not once. Not in speeches, not in press conferences, not in award ceremonies she politely declined. Because the story wasn't hers anymore. It belonged to the kid who found the courage to speak up in class because she'd heard about Monica standing her ground in a boardroom. To the teenager who paused before posting something cruel, because he remembered that someone once lost everything over a lie. To the mother who walked into a job interview with her head held high, because she knew someone like her had made it before. At Bennett Corporation, her name on the door no longer made people whisper. It made them straighten their ties. Vanessa Brooks, once a skeptic, now greeted Monica with genuine warmth. They didn't talk about what had changed between them. They didn't have to. Some shifts happen without words. Charles Bennett too had changed, not softened but opened. Meetings once ruled by data now ended with questions like, how will this impact our people? He never said Monica taught him that. But she saw it in the way he listened. The Carter Bennett Foundation expanded. Not because of headlines or funding drives but because people showed up. Volunteers. Local leaders. Former employees who wanted to give back. And every time they did, they brought stories. About that diner. That boy. That night. Lucas, now in college, worked part-time at the center. Not because he had to, but because he believed in it. Sometimes Monica would catch him staring at the photo on the wall. The grainy snapshot of a rainy night, a wheelchair, a plate of grilled cheese. He never said much. but the way he looked at her said everything. One day Monica walked into Louie's diner. The place where it all began. The same cracked counter. The same flickering neon sign. But now, behind the register, hung a framed newspaper clipping. Woman offers kindness to a stranger's child and changes the future. Below it, a small brass plaque. In honor of Monica Harris, proof that integrity feeds more than hunger. No fanfare. No ribbon cutting. Just quiet recognition. She stood there for a moment, hand resting on the glass counter, heart full. Then she turned and left. No speech, no smile. Just the soft echo of the bell above the door as it closed behind her. Lucas Bennett had never called his father Dad. Not once. As a boy he used Sir. At first out of formality. Later out of habit. Eventually out of distance. Charles never corrected him. He didn't know how. In the early years, meetings mattered more than milestones. Lucas's physical therapy appointments came second to quarterly reports. His birthdays were marked by wire transfers and overnight gifts, not presents. But Lucas never complained. That was the thing. He learned young that expecting less made the absence hurt less. And Charles, well, he convinced himself that providing was enough. Until the rain. Until that night when a stranger showed his son more care in 5 minutes than he had in 5 years. Charles never spoke of it. But something changed in him. It showed in small ways first. Like how he started texting Lucas just to ask how his day was. How he began attending doctor visits without announcing himself. Sitting in the corner, quiet. Listening. Lucas noticed. He didn't say anything either. But the silence between them grew warmer. One Saturday afternoon, Charles appeared at the community center unannounced. Monica raised an eyebrow. Volunteering, she teased. He didn't answer. Just gestured to Lucas, who was assembling toy kits for a holiday giveaway. I want to help, Charles said. With him. Lucas glanced up, unsure. But nodded. They worked side by side in a corner of the gym, filling boxes with plastic dinosaurs, colored pencils, and tiny flashlights. It was awkward at first. Charles taped the wrong boxes. Lucas didn't correct him. Until he did. No, that one's for ages 6 to 8, he muttered. Charles fixed it without a word. The rhythm came slowly. Fold. Tape. Pack. Pass. Then during their third box, Charles cleared his throat. Your mom used to make these kits, he said quietly. Every Christmas. Lucas froze for half a second. He didn't remember much of her. Yeah, he asked without looking up. She'd spend hours finding the perfect pencils. Said they mattered more than toys. Lucas nodded once. I like the flashlights. Charles smiled, genuine, small. Me too. Later that day, as they packed the last box, Charles reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something wrapped in tissue. He handed it to Lucas. Inside was a flashlight. Sturdy. Black metal. Inscribed in tiny script. For when the path gets dark. Dad. Lucas stared at it. At the word. He didn't speak. Just closed his hand around it. And Charles, he didn't push. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Didn't try to explain years already spent. He just stood there, letting the moment settle. That night, Lucas added the flashlight to his nightstand. Not because he needed it, but because it meant someone finally saw him. The next morning, as Charles poured cereal into a chipped bowl in Monica's kitchen, Lucas walked in, yawned, and mumbled, "Morning, Dad." It was soft. Almost casual. But it stopped Charles mid-pour. He didn't respond right away. He didn't need to. Because in that small word, in that fleeting moment, was everything he had been trying and failing to build. And now finally he wasn't trying anymore. He was just there. It had been almost 5 years. Since the rain-soaked night when she brought a shivering boy into the Lexington diner. Since a sandwich and a smile unknowingly opened the door to a world she never dared to imagine. Monica Harris now carried titles, vice president, founder, advisor, but none of them sat as heavily on her as the simple name engraved on that old brass plaque in the diner window. In honor of Monica Harris. And that was where she returned, one quiet morning before sunrise. No cameras, no entourage, just her, wrapped in an old trench coat, hair tied back, sneakers worn but steady. The street hadn't changed much. The same cracks in the sidewalk. The same flickering cash for gold sign across the road. Even the faint buzz of the faulty streetlight above hummed its tired tune. She stepped inside the diner. It smelled like memory, burnt coffee, butter, and old vinyl booths. The air was warmer than she remembered. Or maybe she had just grown colder out there. Louis, now retired, had left the place to his niece, Marcia, who was already behind the counter, wiping it down with that same slow rhythm Monica had once used. Marcia looked up and smiled. Told Uncle Louis you'd come back someday. Monica chuckled softly. Guess I couldn't stay gone forever. She slid into the booth by the radiator. The same one she had sat Lucas in all those years ago. Marcia brought over a mug of coffee. No words exchanged. Silence hung between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything that didn't need to be said. After a while, Monica reached into her coat pocket and placed something on the table. A worn photograph. It showed a younger her, soaked in rain, crouched beside a wheelchair. The boy's face was turned away, but the tenderness in the moment was unmistakable. Marcia leaned in. Is that Lucas? Monica nodded. That night, they sat together, letting the photo speak. Outside, the first light of morning crept down Lexington Avenue, softening the city's edges. A teenager on a skateboard cruised by, headphones in, oblivious to the quiet history behind the fogged-up glass. Monica turned back to Marcia. I never said thank you, she said. Marcia blinked. To me. To this place, Monica clarified, voice low. For giving me a table to offer kindness. A shelter to hold a moment that changed everything. Marcia smiled, eyes misty. You changed everything, Monica. We just brewed the coffee. Monica let that sit. Then reached into her bag and pulled out a thin envelope. She slid it across the counter. What's this? Marcia asked. Monica stood, smoothing her coat. Enough to keep this place running. And to start a scholarship. For any kid who ever sat by that radiator hungry and cold. Marcia swallowed. You sure? Monica nodded. I came back to close the circle. Not to be seen. Just to give back. As she stepped out, the city had awakened. Cars passed. Horns blared. The diner door clicked shut behind her. But Monica stood still for a moment longer. She looked up at the faded neon sign. Then at the window where her plaque hung, catching the sunlight just right. She touched 2 fingers to it, not for herself, but for that version of her who once wiped down tables and believed that small kindness still mattered. And as she walked away, she left nothing behind but the quiet grace of a woman who knew where she came from, and never forgot it. The office door creaked open. Monica looked up from her desk, the golden light of late afternoon spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her. There he was, Lucas Bennett, now a freshman at Howard, taller than she remembered, but still with that gentle fire behind his eyes. You wanted to see me? He asked, shifting nervously, backpack still slung over one shoulder. Monica stood, nodding once, then gestured for him to sit across from her. The room, her office, was sleek and modern yet lived in. A photo of her mother sat near the window, next to a framed article titled, From Diner to Director, How Monica Harris Changed Corporate America from the Inside. But today wasn't about Monica. It was about what came next. She slid a small, worn notebook across the desk. Its cover was cracked at the edges, corners soft with years of use. Lucas took it, confused. What's this? My old journal, Monica said. From when I first started here. Before titles. Before people remembered my name. Lucas flipped through a few pages. There were notes, sketches, quotes in faded ink. One read, Be the table where someone finds warmth when the world gives them none. That night in the diner, Monica said, her voice quieter now. You weren't the only one saved. Lucas looked up. You reminded me who I was, she continued. And every decision I made after every push against the system, every fight I picked, was because I wanted this world to make room for kids like you. For people like us. Lucas swallowed hard. I'm just trying to figure things out, he said. I don't know if I'm ready to carry all this. You're not, Monica replied simply. Not yet. He blinked. But you will be, she added, eyes steady. Because you don't lead with ego. You lead with care. That's rarer than talent, Lucas. And far more powerful. Silence settled between them like soft fabric. Outside, the city buzzed. Inside, legacy took form. Not in contracts or stock shares, but in a quiet exchange of understanding. Monica walked around the desk, handed him a key. "This unlocks the Foundation's mentoring archives," she said. "One day you'll be in charge of them. When that day comes, don't just fund futures, fight for them. Protect them." Lucas held the key like it weighed more than metal. He stood, emotion thick in his throat. "Why me?" he finally asked. Monica smiled. "Because you were the first person I ever gave something to, without expecting anything back. And you were the first to return that gift with a promise." He nodded slowly, almost reverently. "I won't let you down." "I know." They didn't hug. They didn't need to. As Lucas walked out of the office, Monica turned back to her window. The sun was lower now, casting a long shadow across her desk. And she felt something she hadn't in years, relieved. Because she wasn't carrying it alone anymore. Because the fire had been passed. And it was in good hands. The sky was beginning to dim, streaked with amber and violet as the city exhaled into twilight. In a small diner on the east side, not Louis', not the place where everything began, but one like it, a young waitress in her early 20s wiped down a booth near the window. Her name tag read Nina, and her sneakers squeaked on the tile floor. It had been a long day. Tips were lousy. Her college classes were harder than she thought. Rent was overdue. But she kept wiping, kept smiling, because that's what her mother had taught her. You don't stop being kind just because the world forgets to be. Outside, a boy stood beneath the awning, no older than 10, wet from the drizzle, hoodie clinging to his arms. He looked lost, afraid. Nina paused. She glanced at the manager, who was busy counting receipts, then back at the boy. Without a word, she opened the door. "Hey there," she said gently, stepping into the light rain. "You okay?" The boy looked up, eyes wide. He hesitated, then whispered, "I got separated from my mom." "Come on in," she said, crouching slightly to meet his eye level. "We'll figure it out. But first, let's get you warm." She led him inside, sat him near the radiator, pulled a clean towel from the back, made him a grilled cheese sandwich just the way her grandmother used to. Warm, simple, with a little smiley face drawn in ketchup. The boy took a bite. His shoulders relaxed. His fingers stopped trembling. Nina smiled. Not for praise. Not for recognition. Just because it was the right thing to do. Across the street, a man leaned against the hood of a sleek black car. He watched silently. Tall, composed. A familiar gray in his beard now. It was Lucas, older, steady, thoughtful. On the passenger seat beside him lay a thin, worn notebook. He didn't interrupt. Didn't rush in. He simply nodded once. Because he knew the fire had caught on. Because what Monica once gave him, he now saw echoed in this young girl's quiet act of courage. And soon he would find a way to help her too. Not because she asked, not because she needed saving, but because kindness deserves to echo. Inside the diner, Nina returned with a cookie and a cup of hot cocoa. Outside, Lucas got back in the car, eyes glancing skyward as the first stars peeked through. And somewhere in an old frame on his dashboard, a photo of Monica smiled back. A waitress. A woman of grit. A legend now written into the lives of others, not with fame, but with kindness. Because sometimes changing the world doesn't start in a boardroom. It starts at a booth, with grilled cheese and the courage to care. Sometimes it's not the grand gestures that change the world. It's the quiet, unseen acts of kindness. Monica didn't wear a cape. She didn't have power or privilege. What she had was compassion, and the courage to act when it mattered most. One sandwich, one warm towel, one moment of seeing a child not as a burden, but as someone who mattered. And from that single act, an entire chain of redemption unfolded. This story reminds us that kindness is never wasted. In a world often ruled by ambition and cold transactions, it is those who choose empathy, who lift others without asking for anything in return, that truly make the difference. Monica didn't need applause, but her light echoed forward through Lucas, through Bennett Corp, through a legacy built not on wealth but on heart. If this story touched something deep within you, if it made you think of someone who once gave you a chance, or if it reminded you that we all have the power to create ripples of change, leave us a comment below. Share your thoughts. Share your gratitude. And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, stories that uplift, that restore faith, that remind us of who we are at our best. Please subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss a story that speaks to the soul. Because in every act of kindness, there's a lesson. And in every lesson, there's a legacy.